Hello, Voyagers! In this episode, we talk to
Frank. It's just me. And we're going to talk about the election.
Wayfeather Media presents Clairvoyaging.
Today is Thursday, November 14th in the year of our Lord Help Me 2024, 1 week after the United States presidential election, and I'm going to talk about how to process it, because no matter who you voted for, this requires processing. If you tuned in today to escape that stuff, I'm super sorry, but I also promise that I'll get into and out of the weeds as quickly as possible, and I also promise it all ties back into clairvoyaging, the divine feminine, and specifically why it's time to reclaim the personal power and energy that you generously donated to either a prosecutor pretending to be a progressive or a criminal cosplaying as a cop. You might be asking, but Frank, isn't spirituality above the nastiness of politics? No. The answer is no. Spirituality cannot be executed in a controlled bubble. You can develop your spirituality in isolation. But integrating those practices into the real world is where the true lesson is, because it's where ideology gets janky as shit. When an event with massive implications, like this election, occurs, claiming that none of it really matters or that you're unaffected by it are literally bad faith arguments. Bad faith arguments. You're ultimately withholding your influence on our world. As a spiritual community, what are we manifesting by telling the universe that nothing matters or we don't care? It's probably not good. So let's get janky. Everyone agrees that things are not great. I don't know if it's just me getting older, but I feel like the rate of chaos is increasing. The world has no chill right now, and there are too many things to blame. In situations like this election, every choice is the contentious choice to somebody. I voted for Harris, which probably isn't like a shock if you listen to the show. When it comes to policy, my top priority is that everyone should be able to do whatever they want as long as it doesn't affect anyone else's ability to do whatever they want. This can be summarized as the concept of personal autonomy and the unwritten rule of live and let live. The concern for communal well-being is built into this principle. So, naturally, I voted for a prosecutor because nothing makes sense, but also because of her public demeanor and apparent decency. If you follow the show, you know that financially, this is not my most prosperous year, and the cost of living absolutely sucks. So I understand why people might want to try something different. When backed into a corner, there are a ton of people who will always roll the dice on the off chance they win relief from present discomforts. You might have voted for that change, and logically, I understand how you got there. I might have done the same thing had the competition been a respectful person. But he's not. Maybe in another timeline, he could have been. So, trigger warning. I'm about to talk shit about Trump. But only because he's a mean-spirited dick. No other reason. If you voted for him and you're on the same spiritual path that I am, I don't want you to feel alienated at all. I promise there's a good reason I'm doing this. We talk about trauma on the show a lot, and we've explored all the ways trauma can show up in your life and even start to steer your life if you don't manage it properly. When we look at this guy through that lens, what do we see? So many of his actions, idiosyncrasies suddenly make a little more sense. Low self-esteem, toxic stoicism, being surrounded by transactional relationships, creating a sycophantic environment where his self-reported genius is unchallenged. I'm not a psychologist. I'd never claim to be. I'm not diagnosing. But I do know that narcissism can develop out of a sense of self-protection, and 78 years of self-protection will cause a callus that probably can't be removed. He's a bad hombre. My point is that there's a high likelihood that young Donnie, in his formative years, needed more hugs from mom and dad than he got. And that need snowballed. And now he's a contender for the world-class prick championship. He's a sad boy in the body of a traumatized king, and he's paying it forward to us. His need for an arena full of affirmation and his willingness to say anything to receive it makes it feel like he might be on our side, but at the end of the day, it's just words. He's got a silver tongue. Even if you voted for him, I'm pretty sure you know he's on his own side. We've done this already. We've seen how this goes. As a spiritual community, even if you're new to the scene like I am, I truly believe that it's imperative that we take a vested interest in pointing out and isolating damaging and degrading behavior of our leadership. His words and actions embody the perfect antithesis to the mission of this show, which is to foster understanding, respect, and curiosity for diverse spiritual belief systems and to heal our traumas, to normalize our unique spiritual journeys. I won't speak about him anymore, but I do want to say that he's not the only energy vampire in town, even though he's giving full Dracula. Let's talk about reclaiming your power. You feel drained. I feel drained. Everyone feels drained. Why? My election plan was to vote for the lesser of two evils, get them into office, and then proceed to give them absolute hell and make them wish they'd never been born, because that's what we're supposed to do. Politicians at every level are voluntary public servants, not superheroes. They're automatons. We say jump and they say how high. We tell them when to eat, sleep, and take a municipal shit. We hire them to take abuse from us. And in return, they get to keep their overpaid jobs. $174K for Congress, $400K to be the president. We pay them that money. Do you make $174K? Statistically, there's a 90% chance you don't, but you probably work harder. Politicians are desk jockeys. They wear suits and push paper. Literally, 3% of proposed legislation gets passed. 3%! Name another industry, public or private, where that's acceptable. Now, think about how much time we spend lamenting about these turds. Regardless of who you voted for, if you're not treating your elected officials like the overpaid figurative punching bags that they signed up to be, you're getting robbed. Even worse, if you didn't even bother to participate in the process, these jackals are taking all of your money and they don't even have to listen to you. They need your opinion. They need you to like them, and they need your money. You sponsor them. Politicians should be wearing your name on their hats and jackets, like NASCAR racers, not the other way around. So burn the authoritarian red baseball hats and blue flags and stop putting these individuals above yourself and your community and your family, and take your personal power back. It's in this spirit that I'm going to speak towards something that I've been researching, the concept of the divine feminine. Divine femininity is genderless. So to my dudes, I'm not talking about being a womb goddess or whatever terminology my dreadhead crystal babies out there use. Love you. In esoteric studies, the divine feminine is the answer to the divine masculine. Both are required to strike a balance in your inner world and the outer world. There is a belief circulating right now that we are moving out of a period of masculine energy, defined as assertiveness, logic, and action, and into a period of intuition, nurturing, compassion, and healing. You know, all the things we talk about on the show. And fellas, I promise this isn't emasculating. You can still go to the gym, get swole, do the sports, close huge deals, crush a New York strip, and cheer each other on while you chug, chug, chug. We're not talking about that masculine stuff. We're simply suggesting that while you bro down with the dudes, you can also embrace intuition and compassion, which in this period of time, under this leadership, is in fact an act of descent in a world that is being steered by trauma responses. In our recent episode with Carrie Koss, we briefly mentioned the story of Lilith and I really want to introduce you to who she is and what she represents in the esoteric world. Big sigh, but first I have to cover some foundational information that I really don't feel like covering because I'm for sure going to bastardize it, but please just work with me, give me a little bit of grace. The Holy Bible, in all of its forms, is a hand-selected compilation of writings that were chosen out of an even larger pile of writings that is literally everything that's ever been written about spirituality since someone picked up a chisel and documented what they ate for breakfast, which, by the way, absolutely annoyed all of their ancient friends on Chiselgram. The men who assembled the Bible left a lot on the cutting room floor, a lot. Like you could fill a library, set it on fire, and call it Alexandria, a lot. The assembly process took centuries and was spearheaded by men who might have had a personal agenda. For example, the Roman Emperor Constantine had some influence in standardizing the Bible, which solidified his role as a central figure in Christian theology and increased his personal power. So there's good reason to side-eye his journalistic integrity. And he's just one of what some estimate to be literally thousands of people involved in the process. There's an insane amount of room for embellishment and hyperbole. I mention all of this because evidence of tampering can be found all over the good book. But we're going to take a look at the very first book, Genesis. You know that whole part about creating the world and Adam and Eve and all that? If you were to sift through the writing that didn't make it into the final cut, you'd find a number of literature pieces that predate the Bible by multiple millennia. And each of them describe in detail Adam's first wife. Adam's first wife. Adam had a first wife. Her name was Lilith. The world's first man was already playing games. I understand why Lilith was nixed from the story, because to the patriarchy, she's a very inconvenient character. According to the lore, Lilith is the first woman created by God and made of the same earth as Adam, rendering her an equal to him. Adam didn't like that, but he really didn't like when she refused to be subordinate to him, and she asserted her independence. Tired of his shit, she swiped left and ditched him and the entire Garden of Eden. Adam told her, "Dude, calm down, stop being so emotional," and she said, "Eat my dust, I'ma do my own thing." Not even Archangel Samael could bring her back. Funny enough, in some traditions, Samael meets up with her and is like, "Bro, she's wicked hot, she's independent," and then they go and get married. He's into it. That's God's guy. God's guy is into it. Adam, now a certified dog with zero life skills, goes back to God and asks for a wife that's a little less difficult. Someone, bound to him. Not that he deserves it. God plucks Adam's rib, makes Eve, and Adam's like, "That's fine, I guess." Here's the amazing part of all of it. And by amazing, I mean like detrimental. As the lore of the Bible evolved, so did the story of Lilith. At first, she was an ambivalent symbol of independence, rebellion, liberation, just to name a few. Like I said, very inconvenient concepts to the patriarchy. Eventually, the story evolves to the point where they literally demonize her. No, listen. They literally demonize her. By the Middle Ages, she was known as the Queen of Demons. Much like every woman that's ever been in a position of power. So just for funsies, let's go with the story that she's a demon and Eve is our champion. Eve, the subservient counterpart to Adam, ever available to his needs, just non-stop sandwich-making machine. You got foot rubs galore. And for her compliance, she was rewarded the highest honor of being blamed for original sin. After all, she gave Adam the forbidden fruit from the tree of wisdom, right? So according to the Bible, and like every other holy text, everything ever can be blamed on a woman. Last week, the day after the election, I was in a hungover stupor. I had already started working on this episode, but I took the day off. We live in Southern California, so in addition to the shitty election results, like 100 houses were burning 10 miles from here. The famous Santa Ana winds are a force to reckon with, but they always give an eerie feeling like the world is spinning too fast. I looked out the window and I saw the trees blowing in the wind and just felt that chaos and that power. And just for a quick moment, I remembered my research about Lilith and how she's sometimes depicted as representing the ambivalent wind, gentle at times, destructive at others. And I was reminded that we can be more than just one thing. We can meet the needs of the season with a smirk and calm rage, the type of nurturing subversion that only a woman in her full power can provide. Voyagers, ladies, the divine feminine lives in all of us, and we are living through a period of time where we have to make a choice to be a subservient Eve or a change-making Lilith. You will be demonized either way, a fact that is completely insane, unfair, and will continue until the powers that be don't be anymore. There has never been a time in history when you have been better positioned for power, as long as the atoms in charge don't trick you into submission through the rhetoric of tradition, something they are trying to do right now. You do not owe them anything. You do not owe them anything. The future is absolutely female. Thank you for listening. Visit www.clairvoyaging.com for show notes, merch, or just to say hi. If you'd like to support our journey, visit www.buymeacoffee.com/clairvoyaging. This has been a production of Wayfeather Media.